I'm Kaz, a teacher here at Leiths, and in this skills video we are going to be looking at one of the 4 major cake making methods, the whisking method. And with this whisking method we are going to be making a Swiss roll. With a Swiss roll, the majority of the rise is going to be coming from the whisking of the eggs and the sugar. We will also be adding self-raising flour, which is going to help with that lift as well. As part of my mise en place, I have weighed my 4 ingredients. I have put my oven onto 190 degrees, and now I need to prep my tin. For a Swiss roll, we need to do a little bit of work to create a parchment pocket for the sponge to sit in. So, to prep myself for the exercise, I have 2 pieces of parchment. I have an A4 sheet of paper. I have some paper clips and some scissors. Popping my A4 piece of paper in the middle, I am going to fold my parchment over each side of the paper. And what you'll be left with is an A4 size tray or sheet at the bottom. Before I go any further, I'm just going to trim these large edges to be the same width as these ones here. Doesn't have to be perfect. And now I'm ready to start creating the pocket. Let's take one corner at a time. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 seams, and I'm going to bring together seam 2 and 3. Bringing those seams together. Like this. And then using a paper clip to bring it together. Let's look at that again. I have seam 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'm going to lift up and bring seams 2 and 3 together. A little bit of encouragement and paper clip them together. Just giving the edges a little bit of stability. And there we have it, our little Swiss roll pocket. Absolutely perfect if you don't have the right size tin in the house. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix together my flour and my cocoa. And this just means when it's time to sieve in, that cocoa is evenly distributed through the mixture. Time to start that whisking method. Cracking your 4 whole eggs into a bowl. Time to add the sugar. And now it's time to start whisking. We are going to whisk this to a 5 to 6 second ribbon, and I'll show you what that's going to look like, but it will take around 5 minutes to get there. So after about 1 to 2 minutes, you can see that it's expanded in volume, it's lightened, it's airy, but when I lift the beaters up and draw that liquid over the surface, it immediately disappears. we're looking for that mixture to stay held on the surface for 5 to 6 seconds. Time to test that ribbon stage. 1, 2, 3. So what we're looking at is the point where it first touches the surface. 1, 2, 3. 3 to 4 second ribbon there, a little bit further to go. Now, just from the way that the whisks leave a trail in the mixture, I can tell this looks ready. We're going to check that ribbon, and actually it now holds almost indefinitely. Depending on the strength of your electric whisk, that could take anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes. But what we're looking for is that key indicator, that 5 to 6 ribbon holding on the surface. Because I've spent so much time getting air into here, we now need to be really careful with this mixture. I'm going to sieve my flour and cocoa over the top, being careful not to bang the side of the bowl, not to deflate the mixture. And now, using a metal spoon, I'm going to fold that flour in. Using a metal spoon, because of the lovely sharp edge, it's going to help us cut through that mixture easier. So I'm going around the side of the bowl, coming up through the middle and folding over. If you see any lumps, you can tease them out with the tip of your spoon. But the idea is that we want to get a consistent colour to this mixture without knocking out too much of the air. That flour cocoa mixture is much heavier than the beaten eggs, so you'll find that it naturally sinks to the bottom. Just before I think I'm done, I'm going to take my spatula and just scrape out that metal spoon, making sure that none of that dry mixture has settled there. And then it's worth just doing a little check. Just when you think you might be done, you are likely to find one last patch. We've spent up to 10 minutes incorporating the air in here, so we need to be really careful getting the mixture in. We want to get as close as possible and drag it from one side to the other. Teasing out those last bits in the bowl. We don't want to scrape it completely clean with a spatula, because that will knock out a lot of the air and create a density to those last bits of sponge, which will weigh down everything else. This is a very quick bake, so I'm going to need to encourage the sponge really gently to the edges and to the corners, because it won't spread there like a Victoria sandwich might. This is a fatless sponge. We don't have any butter. And once that is reasonably even and consistent, it's time to get it into the oven as quickly as possible. This has had 10 to 12 minutes in the oven. And what are we looking for? It's risen, it's just starting to come away from the sides. And when I push it, there's a gentle bounce back under my fingers. I'm now going to transfer this to a wire rack, and we're going to let it cool ever so slightly and then think about rolling it up to set the shape. Carefully remove the paper clips, they will be hot. And then we want to gently tease away the cake from the side. I'm going to remove the under piece of parchment and set that up to flip it over onto. This is going to be the piece of paper that I flip the sponge out onto. So the first thing I need to do is I need to coat it with a little bit of caster sugar. This is going to give that characteristic Swiss roll finish, but it's also going to ensure that the sponge does not stick to the parchment. Set myself up ready to flip. I've got my parchment with my caster sugar, and I've got my sponge right on the edge of my wire rack, and I've flipped my parchment underneath. I'm then going to line up my wire rack onto the parchment, and 3, 2, 1, flip it over. To peel this away, I'm going to be using a palette knife, and the idea is my palette knife is going to be pushing away from me as I pull the paper towards me. That palette knife just creating tension, giving us a nice smooth finish. Whilst my sponge is warm, I'm going to roll it up now to set the shape, which is going to help me with the process later. The first thing I'm going to do is just give myself a little indent to start with. Not all the way through, just a little scoring. And then that is going to form the basis of our roll. As you roll, you're going to be taking the parchment with you this time. Nice and gently, not pushing too hard, just allowing the sponge to fall. So you can now see inside, we're allowing the sponge to set in that rolled shape. My sponge is now cooling in this shape, and whilst it's cooling, I can get on with making my filling. I have my tablespoon of coffee, and I'm going to add my tablespoon of hot water. And I'm going to mix that until the coffee has fully dissolved before I add any sugar in. Now time for my 2 tablespoons of caster sugar. And that is now ready to flavour my mascarpone cream. time to go in with my 2 tablespoons of icing sugar. Just going to paddle that in. And then I'm going to sieve in my cooled coffee mixture. Using the sieve will just help to catch any of those last undissolved bits of coffee, giving us a beautiful, smooth finish. Now it may initially look like it won't come together because we are adding a water-based mixture into a fat-based mixture, but persevere and it will come together nicely. My sponge has been cooling for 10 to 15 minutes and now doesn't have any warmth to the touch. So now it's time to unroll and fill. All that filling in, and then it's time to spread. I want to be going all the way to the sides, but I want to leave a little gap here. That's going to help to start that roll. And I want to leave a little gap at the top as well, which is going to leave us a little bit of space just in case any of the mixture gets pressed forward. I'm going to roll it up in the exact same way as I did last time. However, this time I'm not going to roll the parchment inside. The parchment is instead going to help me on the outside, starting by encouraging that middle. And with my paper, I am pushing down and forward, encouraging it over the top. And now that that's fully rolled, and I've got it to sit on its seam here, which means it's not going to uncurl. Now time to trim the edges for presentation. I've got my pastry knife, long soaring motions. To reveal a flat edge. Because I set that shape when the sponge was slightly warm, it's made it much easier for me to get that lovely roll shape upon filling. So what you're looking for in the sponge is lovely, light and airy. You shouldn't have any pockets of flour or pockets of cocoa powder. And the outside is just gently finished with some caster sugar.